Until the day the wicked K, Jordan McCready, is no longer on this earth, his claim to fame will always be that he had booted 13-year-old teenager Jon Wilson to death. At the time of the horrific M took place, Jordan was said to have taken copious amounts of Valium and washed it down the chalky taste with drinks like Buck Fizz and Vod. Now Jordan was 16 years old at the time, which meant that he was 3 years older than his innocent victim. Described as hostile, angry, and hellbent on causing havoc and destruction and ruining people's lives, Jordan had been looking for trouble. He was such a troubled teenager that he wasn't even living at the family home. He had been put into care because his family could not deal with his outbursts. Now, at the time of the incident, the teenager was already on 2 separate bail orders and was under strict curfew conditions, which meant that he should not have been outside in the first place with pals when the M took place. He should have been indoors. Previously, Jordan had inflicted serious injuries to 2 police officers. Jordan at that point had appeared at Kilmarnock Sheriff Court, where he did admit scrunching up his hand into a ball and then striking a special constable officer, target area being the face. Jordan then swung with all his might that the police officer had stumbled backwards, and it left a mark. He had also struck a second officer. Initially, Jordan had been declared a risk and bail was denied, but at a separate hearing, Jordan was granted bail, but told that he would have a curfew in place between the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And just 5 days later, Jordan McCready would go on to M. Jon Wilson. Again, Jon Wilson was only 13 years old. Less than an hour later, Jordan McCready would also go on to blade a stranger and also confiscate a teenager's mobile phone. Now, at the High Court in Glasgow, it was said that Jordan McCready, who is from Dreghorn, had passed by 13-year-old Jon Wilson, who was making his way home from a friend's house in the early hours of the morning on September 4th of 2011. Earlier on in the evening, Jon had told his mum that he had planned to stay at a friend's house overnight, and it was agreed. However, Jon innocently changed his mind and he decided to head back home in Gateshead Place, Kilmarnock, at roughly 2:15 a.m. Unluckily, the 2 teenagers had crossed paths near Kilmarnock's Queen's Drive. Now, Jordan was classed as a manipulator, so it's hard to take what he says to be 100% truthful. As an instigator and manipulator that caused the whole community to be in shock and suffer revulsion, Jordan had told the arresting police officers when he was placed in handcuffs. Well, he actually sputtered, shouting at the police officers by saying that he was glad that he had done Jon in and that he had been owed money. He also says that he had jumped up and down, and of course the victim was Jon Wilson. Jordan McCready added, "We were walking to Asda, my pal's sinning. I grabbed him down the lane and then the life out of him." And when Jordan was arrested, he shouted at police officers, "If he gets out of intensive care, I'm going to M him. I'm only 16 years old. I'll do 2 years in Parliament for the attempted M. It's no issue at all. I can handle it." After all, Jordan McCready was already known to police officers, and he was very well capable of taking care of himself. Imagine this. Jordan had used so much force in his feet that when he laid the boot into Jon Wilson, Jordan had actually bruised his own feet. The 13-year-old victim, a second-year pupil at Kilmarnock Academy, stood no chance at all. In the teenager's final moments, Jon would have been afraid, hurt, alone, in absolute agony. His head would have been foggy and he wouldn't have realised what was really happening to him as he lay defenceless in the aftermath on the ground. A late-night passerby had actually heard noises and they went to investigate the sound, and that's when they saw Jon laying there, and they was the one that called emergency services, and they were blue-lighted to the scene. Jon was found in a bad way, laying on his side, most of his body swollen, especially head and face. He was then put in the back of an ambulance where his heart actually stopped. Emergency services were able to revive him and he was rushed to hospital. But sadly, just before 24 hours later, Jon Wilson was declared dead. Now, this was something that his family still struggled to come to terms with. Jon had suffered irreversible brain damage, where it was bruised and swollen and nothing could be done. When police investigated the they were shocked that the suspect was the 16-year-old. After all, Jon Wilson had been treated like a rag doll. Now, police also explained that there were no eyewitnesses to give an unbiased account as to what happened in the onslaught. But at 2:30 a.m., as I said, a late-night passerby heard coughing and sputtering and wincing noises coming from the scene of the Now, Jon was found on his side. He was not breathing properly and his face was covered in red, his face already ballooning. After Jordan had committed his destruction while off his face on pills and drink, Jordan had actually contacted his own parents from the phone that he had confiscated from a separate victim. On the phone, Jordan explained to his parents that he had done something very, very bad. Jordan also told his parents do not call police and to please, please, please keep it a secret. In the aftermath also, Jordan went to the home of his cousin, Kevin Banks, and was seen to be laughing hysterically. As he explained, we have just pounded the L out of someone. Now, Jordan had struck 40-year-old Gordon Patton with a bread blade after demanding that he hand over his mobile phone. Just 15 minutes later, Jordan McCready then confiscated 17-year-old Jonathan McClung of his BlackBerry phone after saying, "If you don't give it up, I will blade you and K you right where you stand." For his crimes, Jordan McCready was jailed for life and he was told that he would have to serve a minimum term of 14 years in jail. Jordan had been in a few different prisons since his sentence. He was in HMP Shots and also Adderwell. Rather than use his time to try and become a better person and seek redemption, Jordan started acting up. He had done things like hang off the banister and also had tried to scrap with other inmates. And he somehow managed to gain access to a mobile phone. He then used the mobile phone to access Facebook and create an account while locked up. He started posting pictures as he was gaining weight and looking decent. And then Jordan, so ever cruel, had looked for family members related to Jon Wilson, his victim, and he thought he had found Jon Wilson's mum. He messaged a lady looking like Jon Wilson's mum saying, "What are you going to buy Jon for Christmas?" And other messages read, "You do realise I've caged your son, right?" And in 2020, Jordan had refused to leave his cell to attend court after he had put his hands on 4 prison officers and also sunk his teeth into them while at HMP Adderwell. The then 24-year-old had served 8 years of his 14-year sentence when he incurred 5 new charges. So it's safe to say that Jordan McCready still has his temper and is still thinking about Jon Wilson's friends and family and how he can cause more heartache to them for no other reason than being in fear that he will be forgotten and considered a nobody. What Jordan McCready craves is attention, plain and simple. Why else would you contact your victim's family and try to goad them into giving you a response? After all, Jon Wilson was innocent. He did not go out looking for trouble. The only thing he did was try to make it home after he decided not to stop at a friend's house. Condolences. Stay safe. Safe.